Good morning. I'd like to call this regular school board workshop to order. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Superintendent, fellow board members, staff, and the community. Thank you all for being here today. As we get moving on here, we're going to move public input to after the presenters get to give their comments on the project, so we're not giving comments twice. So we can hear their presentation, we'll hear from the public, and then we'll deliberate as a board on that one. So we're going to move forward to the topics today. I would also recommend if we could move 3.02, Ms. Deanna Thomas's presentation up to 3.01 to get her moving on with the rest of her day, and then we'll move on with the rest of the agenda as proposed, if that's good with everybody.
Sure.
All right. Hearing that, we're going to do Lincoln Park Education Center update. Ms. Deanna Thomas.
Yep, there at the podium, wherever you'd like to be.
Should be.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, good morning, school board members, superintendent, and district staff. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and share a little bit about the exciting work that is going down in South County and Claremont in conjunction with your Lincoln Park Education Center campus. So in a recent conversation with the superintendent, we realized I hadn't really updated you formally. I know I see many of you out in the community and give little updates here and there, but haven't been able to officially let you know what's going on. So that's what I intend to do, is share just a little bit with you about what we're referring to as Lake Tech South, to make it quick and easy. As you know, we've been up here in the north end of the county since 1967 and really need to expand our footprint and offer services to those in the south. So that's what we're working on now. There we go. So just to give you a quick visual, you can see the aesthetics. This is our board for phase one, which is the renovation of the current gym. And the architect chose to kind of mimic the design and the scheme that you all did in the Lincoln Park Education Center, but branding it with the Lake Tech brand to differentiate and show the difference, but yet tie in the two design elements together. So I wanted to share with you the current phase that's underway now in the former gymnasium, which looks a little bit like this. It includes 4 classrooms total. 3 of those classrooms are adjoined to labs for the type of programs that will be there. It contains 4 teacher offices, a break room, restroom upgrade, those type of things. We will be launching HVAC training in that area in the day and likely apprenticeship programs in the evening. We formerly ran an HVAC apprentice in Eustis, but many of those apprentices worked in the south end of the county, so it was hard for them to get up here for the related technical instruction. We plan to do that at that location. We'll also be offering electrician training program there, as well as partnering with Lake Sumter State College. They have not determined exactly what program they will be offering there, but one of those classrooms and lab space are dedicated for programming for Lake Sumter State College, as well as an additional classroom that could be utilized by both entities. This was funded solely on a workforce capitalization grant given from the state of Florida, so 100% paid for through that grant to include FF&E and the equipment and the things that we need. Lake Sumter State College also wrote a grant in conjunction for the equipment and the FF&E that they'll need to outfit that. So that is phase one currently, and just to show you a couple of pictures, I don't know how familiar you are with the property, but what you're looking at there is the former locker rooms and showers from many, many, many years ago that have been all working on demo so that we can construct a break room and redo the bathrooms and things in those areas. And then you can see the gym, all of that old flooring is up, demo is done, and mitigation has been completed in that area. So anticipated to be done in March of 2026. It may be too late. We wanted to start programming in the spring, but depending on how that works out, it may be August, but if we can start some programming in the spring, that's our intention there on site in phase one. Any questions on that so far?
Exciting.
Yes, exciting indeed. So this will give you an idea of what we're thinking about doing on the remainder of the property, a very kind of conceptual idea based on, of course, funding for programs and based on dedicated and targeted occupations as identified through Florida Commerce. All programs that we offer are on a high wage, high skill, or high demand list. And so any workforce programs that we offer in that area would be first looked at through that list, and then also partnering with our over 200 business and industry partners that currently work with Lake Technical College to decide what programming we will offer there. But just to give you an idea of some of what we're thinking, you can see on the right-hand side the current phase one that I just showed you in a larger scale. And then the idea was always to work from right to left, obviously closer to your completed high school campus, and then working the other direction, knowing that we likely need to get these funds in phases. So we would love to just do it all at one time, but that's not the reality. So we're working from the right side of the campus to the left. And so you'll see some of the programming, a couple of the things we were looking at to be unique in that area. I don't know how familiar you are with the Lincoln Park community, but it's a very synergistic type of community that is very engaged and just embedded there through and through. And so we wanted to kind of pay back and say, how do we offer programming but still do great things for the community? So one of the projects that we've been talking about and in conversation with Lake Sumter State College is a combination of doing dental assisting and dental hygienist there. Hygienist is at the state college level, assisting is at the tech college level. We could share space and instructors, which will be a savings across the board, but it will also allow for an indigent dental clinic in the area so that members of the community will be able to come in to get free or reduced dental services, which we think is a great thing in that area. The other would be bringing our baking and pastry arts program. We currently offer culinary here in the North End and baking and pastry arts, but many of those students complete and go on to work in the hospitality areas of Kissimmee, all of the theme parks over in the Orlando area. So we have a lot of students that drive from the south up to take that program. And we'd also like to launch baking and pastry arts there and turn that into a community type of bakery. So residents could buy discounted breads or goods. Also, the students or the faculty and staff that are on site could take advantage and have some treats, and the students would be able to do their hands-on work. So those are a couple of the programs, obviously, that would involve the community, but then we're looking at our healthcare programs because there's need, we run them now in the north and south end of the county, as well as IT and business and our adult education. Two other components besides programming would be offering a Pearson VUE testing center in the south end of the county. We're currently authorized Pearson VUE testing in Eustis, but there is not an area in the south end of the county, and there's a huge need. So we would authorize that site also as a second site for us in testing. And then I've been in communication with community partners such as CareerSource Central Florida, who would also like to have an area in the south because many of their individuals drive all the way up to the Leesburg office here to gain services for, job seekers or upskilling or those types of things. So really just thinking about it in a holistic way to also engage those high school students that are there in what's next, whether they do it as a dual enrolled program or whether they do it as let's finish and get this diploma and then we're going to go into some type of quick short-term skill that will lead to a high-wage, high-skill job. And of course, keeping with our branding of Lake Works with the State College so that as we have these high school students that do something at the Tech College, they can either stop there and go to work or they can articulate that credit and go on to higher degrees. So really just creating that pathway from them from the beginning to the end. So again, just a concept, but some of the ideas that we're thinking as we get closer, we'll look at market demand and make solid decisions about what would be offered there. So we received at this latest legislative session $4.9 million, thanks to Representative Truenow and Senator Truenow and Representative Yarkowski working for site work for that. So many of the grants, I'm sure you're familiar, the grants that we write are very program specific. But when you look at this site, we have restrooms that are very, very old and that were configured for secondary, elementary students. We have a site that isn't conducive to college students driving to the site because they were mostly students bused in. So we have to do some site work, and this appropriation request is what is going to allow us to do the site work because it is not based on program specific. So the idea with this funding is that we would start to do all of the site work needed for the campus, including the office areas and creating that front entrance, because we don't really have an entrance where students can go in and register, talk to an admissions counselor or financial aid. So the former entrance of the Claremont Elementary School on Bloxham would become our entrance for Lake Technical College. And so the hope is that we would renovate those office areas and, of course, do the restrooms across the campus that need to be updated so we can start to bring in further programming. So at that, once we received the appropriation request, and we already have $800,000 set aside from Lake County government that was given to us through ARPA funds, specifically for the south end of the county. So together, we have about $5.8 million to go towards that. So we issued a task order to our architect. We've been using Gator Sketch Designs for our projects. We continued with Scorpio Construction, who is who you all used for the high school portion. They already were familiar with the property, so it made a really easy transition just to let them continue on. They kind of knew what the inner workings were, or I should say underground workings of that building. So it's been a smooth transition in that respect. But the task study is really what brings me here today to kind of get the feeling of what you as a board would like to do. I never want to assume anything. I know that you all said, Lake Tech, we'd love to have you there. We've really jumped on board and done that. But in thinking about the programs and the things in the community I just mentioned to you, that leads to a situation of parking. So in order to create the parking spaces that we need for twofold. One, the number of spaces we need based on the students we'll be serving, but two, the stormwater situation there, which I wish I was an expert on, but I'm not. I brought the architect in case you have questions. But we're already needing to do some stormwater storage and work on the, well, when you're looking at it, would be the left side of the campus there, the south side, I guess, on the actual on-property. If we try to put the amount of spaces we need, we're going to have to reduce buildings, and therefore we'll lose instructional space. So you currently have a gravel parking. If you look at the parking area in this photo, you have a gravel parking area sort of where those first two lines are, which is where we intend to let the students in Phase 1 park now, the HVAC and electrician students. There's enough spaces for them to park there and just walk over into the former gym. But we need more spaces, and we know that you have property there on the backside of that property. I think our district, some district offices and the health care, the wellness center. But there's some property there, and I'm not sure what the plan was for the school district on that property, but I'm here to ask if you would consider letting us develop that and use that as a parking space area for students to be able to go and attend classes there. And I want to also share, these are proposed programs, but we've opened any of this building up to Lake Sumter State College as well. They have their own funding and their things they're working on, obviously, in their building that's just a mile down the road. But anything we can do in combination, we're very open to that. So it's not just Lake Tech, but it would be our primary space, sort of like our space in Eustis for the South. But we imagine there'll be lots of people in and out, Pearson VUE testers, people seeing Career Source, so we need the parking space for that. So that's what I wanted to share with you today and answer any questions you may have or concerns.
There's buildings there now? Where you're saying?
There are no buildings right
like
now.
way
It's
down
just,
here.
it's just a
They're down
grassy
here.
area. They're on the
Okay.
opposite side, so there would still be
I don't see it.
a grassy area in between. There's still some space there. It's not taking probably about half of that. And there would be a small retention pond you can see in the area back there for the stormwater
I
situation.
think one of the most exciting things about you asking for that is that means so many other people will stop asking for that property. You know, because I feel like those calls are nonstop. I mean, it's certainly prime real estate. In terms of what I'm seeing, I'm just really excited about what you're doing there in the community. The collaboration I'm hearing and the spirit and the way you're connecting with the community is just more than I ever dreamed was going to be possible. So once again, kudos for this brilliant outside-the-box thinking.
Yes.
And it seems like a no-brainer to me that you're going to need parking in order to make all this happen. So I'm supportive.
Is this hard parking or is it gravel?
It will be hard parking. We'll asphalt, we'll do.
It's gravel currently.
It's gravel currently
That'll be
in the
hard.
first two rows. The rest is just grass and kind of dirt.
Yeah.
Just spitballing, since you're
Yes.
sharing things? It'd be really nice, I think, if on the weekends or whatever, if they set up where they can play basketball on it, put some hoops, just such a
Mm. Yes,
suggestion.
yes.
And
That would be something to consider. I know
And
there's some
McKinney Park is
curbs
here.
and some things in there, but
McKinney Park is here.
Yeah, there's a
There's
park next
basketball
door.
there.
I think there is.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay, never mind. We'll give them a couple extra hoops.
I would like to, I would like to note too, some of the parking will be redone in the back area, which you can see there at the top right of the photo. So there'll be some parking there, and then also on the left end, because if we do the dental lab, we want consumers to be able to just come in, park there, and not be wandering all over campus. So they would just come to that area and enter straight into the dental lab. So there'll be parking there as well.
Wonderful. Board, any other questions or comments?
Just want to verify, the buildings that are there, they will remain.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what the plan is. We're working everything around, which has made it interesting all at once, especially, I would like to say thank you to the district staff who have been working with me diligently because, you know, we are higher ed, so we're a little different than the K-12 type of buildings, and the things that we want to do are very different than a third grade classroom. So yes, we've been working to leave the footprint of what's there and just do mostly renovation. At this time, there's no expansion for any new buildings. It would just be renovating the existing footprint.
Thanks.
All right.
Excellent.
All right.
Deanna, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate your
much.
leadership and partnership. This is
Absolutely.
looking fantastic, so
Great.
thank you very much.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Sure. All good. Next up will be the five-year capital plan. Ms. Kelly Randall.
Good morning. Superintendent, board members, board chair, I appreciate the opportunity. My annual update on the capital plan. Just a reminder, by the interlocal agreement, it is usually adopted by September 15th, and we sent it a draft to the local governments by mid-August. I think we sent it on August 14th, maybe. So I want to spend a little bit more time. I usually just give you a little quick reminder of what our revenue sources are every year. But I want to spend a little bit more time actually talking about those revenue sources in detail. So, you know, there's three. Our ad valorem property tax, we call it a bunch of different things. Scott likes to call it local capital outlay. And that is our most flexible money. It pays for ongoing expenditures, but it also is the revenue source that is most likely to be hit when there's something else that's going on, right? So we have, by state statute, we now provide a share to our charter schools, and that increases as we add charter schools. So we are now estimating over $12 million over 5 years from that. It is now, they have opened it up to a lot more things that can be transferred to the general fund to supplant other costs, and with the pressure on the general fund, then, you know, there's actually more pressure on the capital fund as well. So you'll see that the insurance transfer increases this year, and also the capital staff transfer. So that is basically, I apologize, my voice, in case you didn't know, we went to Disney last night with the grandkids, and so Tron was a really fun ride. So my voice is a little rough today. But the capital staff transfer, there are a lot more staff that can be paid out of the general or the capital fund at this point. And so that transfer goes up, and then as, you know, costs increase, it goes up every year in this plan. The capital school equipment transfer, that is just kind of a general school equipment that we provide, and so that amount has increased. And then as we add safety upgrades, as we have unfunded mandates from the state, those usually hit the capital fund in the property tax area. And so there's a lot of pressure on that to keep us going, right? So we also have impact fees. Those are dedicated to new capacity only. We have just this year completed the Mineola Horizon Academy and Villages Elementary. Those were both paid out of out of impact fees. Wellness Way, we have programmed an elementary school relief, which will relieve both Lost Lake and Sawgrass Bay. And then, of course, the infamous Wellness Way High School, Triple C, which is in the plan and is funded. But the other thing that we can do with impact fees is we can adjust for additional capacity at renovated schools, right? So Treadway Elementary School, when we rebuild that school in the later years of the plan, there will be some additional capacity there, and that can be funded through impact fees. Same thing with Cypress Ridge. It also allows us to do portable replacements, and so we are able to use some of that funding for that. And then also the capital equipment that we're using for those new renovated schools, like at Mineola Horizon Academy and Villages Elementary. So it pays for the computers and the technology that goes into that. And proportionate share mitigation is actually separate from impact fees, right? So in the end, the developers get credits for their impact fees if they pay proportionate share mitigation, but it is actually separate. So it has to be dedicated to a specific project when we collect those funds. We have been collecting funds for three areas. North High School capacity, part of that is going towards Eustis High School and additional capacity that we're building there. We did a while ago, we built a concrete modular unit at Tavares High School, and that was actually paid for with proportionate share mitigation. In the South County, we are collecting PSM for high school capacity. So far, we have collected about $7 million, and that is dedicated to the high school that we'll be building. And then Leesburg area, there was a short period where we were out of concurrency capacity for the elementary school level. With the projects that we are building in Leesburg area, then that has been mitigated. You know, we don't have that problem any longer, but there for a little bit, we were collecting and collected $1.8 million that was put towards Beverly Shores and the Villages Elementary, but we're not collecting any new agreements. And I know proportionate share mitigation, like you see the agreements all the time, but I want to make sure that, you know, we talked about it a little bit more in detail. And do you have any questions on that one? No?
I have a question. I wonder, you know, it's been some time now since we put in the agreement with the Board of County Commissioners about the impact fees and the forgiveness of impact
interlocal
fees.
agreement for.
Correct. I was just curious if there's been any, have you guys collected any research in regards to how much money that has taken out of the availability of funds for capacity and new projects? Like, has there been any look at that? And
So it's not that it takes it out, right? So it.
no, but we don't get paid
Well,
the
so.
impact fee.
So, but we get the proportionate share mitigation payment.
Right. I'm
in
talking
advance.
about the impact fee, though.
Right, but it's
You think they balance
basically
out?
one for one, right?
Okay.
So they pay us, say it's an agreement for $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
They get $1 million worth of impact fee credits.
Okay.
So we're not losing any money. We're basically,
It's essentially a prepay. It's the same
Wait,
impact
it's
fee
not a
amount.
prepay then.
Well, yeah, they're pre-reservation or whatever word you want to use.
it is a
The impact fee
proportionate
number
share
is still the
mitigation
same.
payment.
But what
Understood.
you said is what I'm interested in, because you said it's basically a one-for-one. Do we have that, we know that for sure? Have you looked at those dollars specifically?
Helen, is there anything that you would say? I brought Helen LaValle because she is our proportionate share mitigation expert. Hi, Helen.
Yes, we, Helen Valley with Grove Planning. We actually do get reports every year on this from the county itself, and it is a one-for-one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank
I
you.
knew I needed her here for something. All right, okay. Any other questions on that? All right. Then the other revenue source for capital is the sales tax proceeds. And if you remember, those were approved by the voters, gosh, maybe 2016, 2015, quite a long time ago. They went into effect in 2018, and it is a 15-year window. This is one, it's actually by the county, right? So it's a 1 cent infrastructure sales tax. We get 1/3 of that. And it will expire in 2032. So our goal, in order to convince the voters that they want to vote for us again next time, is to make sure that we do all of those projects as we go. So we had a very specific list of projects that we put out. They started off as Claremont Elementary and Claremont Middle. That became Aurelia Cole Academy K-8, the Fruitland Park replacement, which we have done. Beverly Shores Elementary, we are in progress. Eustis Elementary, which we're going to talk a lot about today. Eustis High School addition, Oak Park, Leesburg K-8, which will roll in here very quickly. And then Treadway, Cypress Ridge, and Umatilla Middle School. They are all in the capital plan in some form. And so I think we are on track to make sure that we have all of those projects done by the time this window closes. They are supplemented by ad valorem and by impact fees as they're appropriate and as it's necessary to stay on schedule. And eventually, if we do all of these projects and we have some money left over, we can use them for technology infrastructure upgrades and capital renewal. So, any questions on revenue sources? All right. So just generally overall, there is a continued increase in the property tax revenue. We have projected impact fees, assuming that, all goes well. And of course, those are to some extent subject to the county's approval. That we have that to $212 million over 5 years. Sales tax revenue has stayed relatively stable. State's not giving us any more money. And so we have a total of $960 million in this plan. $183 million of that is carryover for this year, basically money because we're on a pay-as-you-go schedule. Then we save up money for projects, right? All right. Challenges, they are always there. They remain. So some of them have been mitigated a little bit over the last bit. Tariffs have added a new twist to the thing, and I'm not sure that we have really seen what the impacts of those are, right? So we'll be monitoring that and hoping for the best. There has been some inflation. Supply chain issues have not been, they've kind of mitigated a little bit. We have not had quite as many issues, but labor shortages have become a little bit of the bigger problem. Some of the long lead times, we're still having long lead times on windows and glass, but not so much on switchgear. Chillers, they're kind of an average at this point. Again, there are increased demands on our local capital outlay or ad valorem or millage or local, whatever you want to call it. And cash flow is always a little bit of a challenge, making sure that we have all the cash at the time that we need it. So my goal's always the same. Let's be realistic. Let's make sure that we're balancing our revenue. I have learned a lot about realistic construction timelines in the last year or so. So we're going to try and make sure that we build that in. I think we had a really successful opening this year, and I think that was because we gave ourselves enough time to actually build these projects. So, and we want to maintain our stable spending on annual expenditures. One of the things that I think that we're going to have to address as we go is actually aging infrastructure, right? So a lot of these schools that we think are relatively new, they're going on 20 years old. So, when I came to the district almost 20 years ago, we had just opened a bunch of new schools, and now those schools are 20 years old. And so that kind of is approaching a midlife for most of our schools. So I know that maintenance has been doing a lot of study on that, and we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to start building in some funding for that to go. All right, so any questions on revenue projections? No? All right, we'll keep going. So our ongoing expenditures, as I said earlier, there's a required share with the charter schools. We are trying to increase maintenance funding because, like I said, we are seeing that aging of some of those schools, that even though honestly our average age of schools is really not bad, they are starting to age. Especially, we have a lot of schools that we built in the 90s and the 2000s, and those schools they are approaching midlife. As I said before, the transfers are increasing, and that does hit our ad valorem. And just as a note, portable installation, we had added that line item a couple of years ago, but I've actually changed the title to portable operations because we are sending some portables back. There's a cost involved in that. And so it's just a better description for what we're doing, right? They're not all installations. Sometimes we're doing other things.
If I can just make one comment on the property insurance transfer, one of those things that the state now allows us to do is to have the liability insurance premium come from the capital fund now instead of just the property. So that 6 million number is the property insurance plus all the liability or casualty insurance. Our property alone isn't that amount, so the total is now coming out of the capital fund instead of that portion from the general fund. Excuse me.
One of the questions that one of you asked me was about our debt. And so Mr. Dodd's like, that was me. So
Here's
the
a milestone.
total
You're
debt-
gonna say it?
You want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the total debt at this point is below $100 million.
Yeah.
We're at 96.465 million in COPS and 1.129 in SBE bonds. Our expected payoff is January of 2030 for the SBE bonds, and then June of 2031 for the COPS. So we are making progress.
Amazing, we're
It's
celebrating under $100 million of debt, right? But like, I mean, if we recall what it was like,
What was it when y'all started?
you know, when this capital plan had no projects in it because all we were doing was paying debt, you know?
Yeah,
So it's-
exactly. It is definitely something.
438 million, wow.
45 million a year we were.
Yeah.
It was awful.
It was, right.
And
We
now
are
it's,
down
what,
below.
18-ish a year to
It's
pay off the remainder?
18-something a year,
Yeah.
right.
We're getting there.
Very well done.
So actually, you can see that on the next page. We average about 18 million a year. And if you think you've got one more year, next year, we'll be talking about that last year of debt payments, assuming that we don't have to borrow any more money. But then the year after that,
We're so close.
we're there. All right. Are there any questions on the ongoing expenditures?
Excuse me, do conversions get a portion of the capital or no?
So, so conversion charters, because there are schools, then I don't believe that they, Scott is here.
They don't get a portion.
They don't get a
But
portion.
we do provide maintenance for their buildings and repairs, and if something fails, like the children, we'll replace the children.
So
Okay.
we don't give them straight cash, but we do
Maintain.
obviously expend money on them.
I knew that we were maintaining them, I just didn't know
Yeah.
if the law had changed where we had to give them any cash. So, okay.
Okay, so, so this is when we get into the working part, which is usually the more fun part. Let's see, so new capacity, there's, because we are saving up money for the high school, then generally going to be fewer projects as we go. Did have Mineola Horizon Academy opened. That was a purely new capacity. Village Elementary School, also purely new capacity. We are monitoring the North County High School capacity issues. As I said, we're adding capacity at Eustis High School. And then we are monitoring Mount Dora High School, but of course, there's two new potential schools that could come in and affect our capacity in those areas, or our enrollment, really. I'm going to say it wrong, Mater Academy. I always want to say Mater every time. Mater Academy, Mount Dora, they have a charter with us for a high school. And then American Heritage Private School on Brett Road, they have some property. So we're monitoring those and going to try and make sure that we come up with the appropriate capacity project to address those. And then the South County High School is fully funded in 28-29. I did have, if I had purely rolled this forward, we would have had design funding in 27, 28. But because there's some language in our concurrency interlocal agreement that basically says then we have to rely on that capacity since we don't have a school site, I felt it was more judicious to go ahead and put all of that funding in the fourth year of the plan rather than the third year of the plan.
Kelly, can you share what we estimate a new high school costs these days?
So, we have it funded at about $200 million, and.
One high school, $200 million.
Yes. Orange County will argue with you that their new high school did not cost $300 million, but, I think there's a good chance it did. And then the Wellness Way Relief Elementary rolls in the last year of the plan. Basically, I think, one of the things that keeps me awake at night is seeing that connector going through up on the 429 and knowing how quickly Horizons West built out after the 429 went in through the south. So I am very concerned about how quickly Wellness Way is going to start building out once that connector goes through to the 27. And so I think we need to really start planning for that as we go.
Kelly, if I can make a comment on that one. After speaking with Kelly and Kathleen Dial at the county, the superintendent, and then Mr. Cole this morning, Orange County and the city of Orlando actually owns about 2,700 acres in Wellness Way that they've had since the 70s for reuse and mitigation and other purposes. And the suggestion was for us as the board to reach out to Mayor Demings from the county, from Orange County, to see if they would be interested in negotiations for us to acquire about 80 acres of that 2,700 acres of Lake County land in Lake County that Orange County owns to build this high school. So after speaking with Mr. Cole this morning, we're going to reach out through Robert Stewart, our lobbyist, to try to get a meeting set up to start those conversations and keep moving forward on at least planning for this inevitable growth and get that site acquired. So just want to put that out there.
That would be great.
Brilliant.
All right. Couple of pretty pictures. So this one actually was provided by Wharton Smith of Mineola Horizon Academy. It's very pretty. And then the Villages Elementary Edition. So those were some completed projects. And I just want to brag on my team at facilities a little bit. I mean, it has been a rough year for us, but they have done an amazing job. I've got a couple of my project managers, Alex and Dave, in the back, and Rich is actually out at work. But but honestly, the whole team is just an amazing group, and I am really happy and proud to be able to work with them. So capital plan renovations, sales tax projects, we finished Fruitland Park Elementary School. Beverly Shores renovation, the construction, after a really quick turnover, we were able to get them under construction the first week of June in 2025. And knock on wood, everything looks really good for a quick completion. Eustis Elementary School, we're going to talk a lot about that today. So that is in master planning and is funded for the 26-27 year. Eustis High School addition is in design, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The next projects, Oak Park Middle School, Leesburg Elementary School. We should be putting out an RFQ for that for both design and construction managers in next spring. It is design funded in 26-27, so you should start hearing a little bit more about that. Treadway Elementary School, Cypress Ridge, and Umatilla. Those are kind of in the later years of the plan. So we'll start working on those scopes, the Castaldi analyses, and that kind of thing as we go. So. All right, Fruitland Park Elementary School. Unfortunately, Schenkel Schultz didn't get the picture in fast enough for me to be able to do this, but there's a really beautiful picture of it. But unfortunately, you got the one that I took. Beverly Shores. That's all of the school. They did a great job. Beverly Shores replacement is under construction. You can see they have poured the footers and are doing a lot of the underground infrastructure work right now. So that's exciting. They are making great progress. Eustis High Addition. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. This is a nice rendering by the architect. Ziskovich has now become Stratus. If you hear me talking about Stratus, bless you. If you hear me talking about Stratus, then that is who that is. CPPI is the design manager. We're working through design right now and expect construction to start in spring of 2026 with completion in July of 2027. But I want to talk a little bit about what this scope looks like. So when we started off, if you see, so building 9 there is actually the addition. It's 600 student station addition to replace Kurt Wright 9th grade center. And then, so we always expected the addition, a weight room, and then we had programmed in where the parking is, showing on that, a replacement practice field to replace our kind of half-size practice field that they have. However, after looking through after working with the school and the team, there has been some expansion of the scope. So what that means is a proposal now is for parking in the location of the old softball field, a practice field down adjacent to the football field, and then a field house and public restrooms that are buildings 12 and 14 down there. Those are increases in the scope, okay? So that increases the budget. And that means that this plan has approximately $9 million more budgeted for this project. However, and Chad will tell you, I was very, we had a lot of discussions about this, just say it that way. But actually, once we went back and we did the study and we looked at what Eustis High School had as far as athletic facilities and what all of our other high school had, there was not a lot of equity there, right? So Eustis High School had approximately one weight room. That was 1,150 square feet. It's very small. And all of our other high schools average about 700 or 7,500 square feet. Adding this field house along with the new weight room that we always kind of plan for, adding the new field house will take that out to within kind of range of everybody else, right? So about 8,000 square feet of additional space. So it's an expansion of the scope. I wanted to make sure that you were aware of it and that you were okay with it before I triggered the architect and everybody else to keep working on this. So,
I just have a question.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Where is the softball field? Because Eustis has a pretty famous softball team.
So they actually have a very nice new field over adjacent to their baseball field at Eustis Heights. It's over across from the Planning and Program Accountability.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, so they actually have a very nice softball field over there.
I also wondered, in regards to, sorry, I do have a cold.
No kidding.
How do you say you have kids in school that just went back without saying it, right? So it has finally made its way to the blue
Molly's got to
passport.
be feeling pretty good about herself.
I know, I'm moving away from her, just so you know. I have scooted down away from Molly. And it just started literally last night. Anyway, I did wonder, because I know currently they've been prepping the field next to the softball field for the football practice field, right? And then they're going to put it on the backside of where the current football field is. In the Eustis Elementary School rendering that is next on the agenda, there was some space that was behind the 9th grade center. Is that not a better space for the temporary practice field than all the money that we're putting in to make the practice field by the Eustis High School softball field when that's just a temporary space?
So we actually looked at that and kind of debated those two things. And it was, the opinion of district staff, the school staff, that because we already had the field house space over at Eustis Heights site, that basically became a better spot for the temporary practice field, right? Because we would have to go in, we'd have to put in bathrooms at Kurt Wright in the backside, And so,
What bathrooms are being used for the practice field, the softball bathrooms?
you know what, I am not 100% in on that. Are we?
Yeah, we'll likely use the bathroom facilities there at the softball field. If you looked at the, as we looked at evaluating the two sites, the field that you're referring to over towards Cartwright, correct, behind there, it's in pretty rough shape. So when it comes to preparing the field to be able to practice on it, from laser grading to replacing some of the issues that were out there, lots of holes that was going to have to be reseeded, most of your costs would have been very similar to that. And because we've already got students accustomed to coming over and having athletics over there, we do have some restroom infrastructure there. We'll probably look at some temporary storage containers out there, but that's not a real high cost. But for a temporary situation, and then going back to what can that space that will be irrigated, which it was already irrigated, it had to be brought up to speed. What could that be used for in the future? You know, whether it's being able to do some band practice there or soccer or whatever sports that they have other than football, that would provide some extra area for the high school to use more readily than we felt like with, especially, you know, with the undetermined future of the Cartwright Center also. So we just felt like it was best to invest in that piece of property.
Yeah, the Cartwright piece is what makes sense now. I just knew it was a temporary site. So that's where the confusion was. I don't think that the bathroom infrastructures, I mean, okay, so if I'm being realistic with you, you've seen the state of the bathrooms at the baseball field. And so now you've got a softball field that's primarily used by girls and parents, and you're going to impose a football team onto those bathrooms, which is concerning. Really concerning. Like, I'm just going to put that out there from that perspective of what I've seen in the baseball locker room. And then the other thing I will say is that we have got to, and I've said this before, there has got to be an update to the forms on students transporting students. And so one of the things that we face at Eustis High School with a field that's off-site is students are transporting students. Whether we are acknowledging that's happening, it happens. My own kids have been subject to that, to riding with students and to transporting students. And so we have this form that says that on every instance that occurs, there's supposed to be a note. Like, that's our current policy. And I don't love a policy that we are clearly not following. Like, why have the policy? So I would love, and what I hear you saying is that we can use those spaces, which is great. I mean, I don't disagree with using those spaces, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to look at it as it comes in regards to, you know, we don't want, you're right, we don't want to put too much pressure on some of those existing facilities. I think there's going to have to be some elevated ownership from the school level to make sure as
I'm
we're
glad
putting
you
more
said that.
people over there.
That's the other thing I will tell you is that off-site, the maintenance for the lawn is always a challenge as well. So that's another.
And we try to lean in and help where we can.
Yep.
For sure, it's been a team effort with that. Because it's challenging for the school being
It is.
off-site, right? And
Yes.
especially, you know, as that leadership there is continuing really with three sites. As you got Cartwright, you've got
Correct.
this off-field. So I think the school was also, you know, thankful that we were looking at locating and expanding the scope. So that way, man, we're drawing everything into this campus and giving the kids of Eustis what they deserve. So, so that was nice of the community and the school to advocate for, let's get this closer to one space.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Like, I like the theory, but I think sometimes there's unintended consequences that the users experience that we don't experience at this level.
And if we have to look at some temporary restroom type situation, similar to what we're doing in some other spaces, we can work that out.
Yeah, and a lot of that, the temporary field was for timing, right? So we're going to be using the existing, well, we're going to be building on the existing field. And then the rest of it, we're going to be using for laydown. We wanted to make sure that we had a field that was usable during that construction period.
Yeah.
And so it was a matter of getting in there, going ahead and getting it seeded, getting it grown out before we actually needed to use it.
Yep, and I'm glad we're using that space. I mean, we do have space there. We've talked about it.
Yes,
So-
we do. And it's looking great.
It is.
It's growing
Looks
in
really
nice.
good.
If we can keep traffic off of it until it's time to use it, we'll be in really good shape. So.
And Dr. Luke, I had one comment. We're pulling it up to make sure. I know we addressed that transporting
there,
students last year. It's a matter of what the language says directly relating to what you're referring to.
Yep.
Because I know we had the conversation, and I remember seeing something updated from Mr. Orr, but trying to figure out what exactly that says. But I agree with you in your concern level on that.
Yeah, I think it might still say per.
It does.
Yeah, that's the part that we're looking to see, because we did have that conversation, and we agree it does need to be changed, so we'll get that resolved.
Thank you.
And perhaps maybe there's some training that goes, because I know
Yeah.
your high school's not the only one. You know, I experienced the same thing down on my end too,
Exactly, yeah.
of that, exactly what you described.
Yeah,
Yep, we're on it.
thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the additional scope? I agree. It's a worthwhile investment to get that up to speed and do the project right the first time. So I'm excited to make it happen.
All right, great.
All right. Kelly, back to you.
All right, so other things that are in the capital plan are that other capital projects. You'll see a line item for capital equipment replacement district-wide. That is to build on that work that maintenance is doing right now on assessing life cycle on some of our larger equipment. So HVAC, chillers, all of those things that have a very definite life cycle, and especially in Florida, right? So, and are, as we discussed earlier, are aging rapidly. So, so that kind of builds in. There's, it starts with a fairly small amount, and then as we build out through the 5 years, it gets to be a larger amount. Radio enhancement project, that is an IT project, and this is the second and final year of that. School intercom upgrade, that's an ongoing project, also run by IT. And then technology upgrades, they are in their second year of increased funding to complete classroom technology improvements, also known as the display project. And then one thing that I forgot to put in the slide, but wanted to discuss, there is an item in the work plan now for Fruitland Park Center. You might have asked what that was. That is the old Fruitland Park Elementary School. We are looking at using it as offices, education foundation specifically, also maintenance. Feels like they would be more efficient with a small satellite office in that area, be able to respond more quickly. The IT, basically the same thing, and then regional offices, and then we'll be talking here in the next month or two about some possibilities or recommendations for ancillary facilities, and so, you know, there's possibility that maybe we could look at it as kind of a swing space for ancillary facilities. But I don't want to go into too much detail there. But basically, that funding is some for assessment during this year while Beverly Shores is in there, and then relatively $1 million. I was about to say a relatively minor amount. I'm not sure in what world $1 million is relatively minor, except for, you know, my world now. But only in my work world, not in my personal world. And so, you know, that would be if we decide that we want to demolish any of that, if we need to do some additional maintenance work on it, if we need to do some interior build out, and that would be for that process. Also new are the replacements of portable offices. They have been assessed, and everyone agrees that these are some of substandard working conditions, and so we are working on replacement of offices for Eustis ESE bus lot and Leesburg bus lots. One is this year, 25-26, and that is actively underway. The Leesburg bus lot is scheduled for next year. So we're working through those. Others, Stover Field, we are still committing to our improvements of Stover Field. That's the Tavares High School baseball field. High school athletic facility projects, those vary annually. High school turf replacements, the same. Elementary playgrounds, Gary Rogers in the grounds department has a program, a 5-year program. And so that annual amount you'll see kind of varies based on which schools he is going to replace that year and how much needs to be done. And then covered walkways, we are still working through that. I just want to highlight this a little bit. South Lake High School restrooms, the Construction Academy at South Lake High School, they are very, I won't say ambitious because they get it done, right? So they are a very active and organized construction academy. There was an old portable restroom that served the tennis courts and softball field down there. They came to us with a program to do a joint venture, basically, to rebuild those. And so the district is covering the design fees and a lot of the kind of technical things, surveys, utility locates, dumpsters, some of the things that they cannot get necessarily donated, but they're doing some of the labor themselves. They're acting as construction managers. I honestly will see how it goes this year, but I think it could be a great model for other kind of joint ventures with the schools.
Are they going to keep it in the same space where those bathrooms are, do you know?
They're very similar. There's a softball press box
Yeah.
that's going to come down, and then it's going to replace that, basically. So generally, same area. It's 2 restrooms, group restrooms, and then a small concession stand space and some storage. It should be really nice. So I'm excited to present that next year and tell you how it went. And then also our land acquisition priorities, obviously that Wellness Way High School site. I would love to get that off my to-do list. And then we are always actively looking for sites in that, what I like to call North Groveland, South Leesburg, West Howie area. That is our next kind of high-growth area for the district. So we just look for opportunities to try and pick land up in that area. And so that is the work plan. Are there any other questions on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, right,
Can we go back to the elementary playgrounds for just a second?
sure.
Do we have a current,
Nope. I don't know what
Get it back,
happened.
Lip.
No,
do we have a current list of what schools have been completed and where they rank in the list of ones to be completed?
I do not have that with me, but I think that we could certainly get that and send
Okay.
that out to the board.
Thank you.
I know Gary is very organized.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anything
Board,
else?
any other questions or comments?
The one thing that I'm not able to connect the dots, because we hear about that student enrollment is going down, but then we're planning on this growth. Are we,
So, there's 2 sides to that, right? Right now, especially in the high school. So, right now, what we're seeing is fairly stable. I think that I think that the high schools will stay in demand, right? And in the South County, our high schools are, we could fill a new high school tomorrow. I don't think that demand is going to go away. And as Wellness Way builds out, remember, there's 19,000 units proposed in there. So that is a lot of students. Even if not every student chooses to come to Lake County schools, we are still going to get a lot of students from that. So, I think that's why the focus has been on Wellness Way. Otherwise, in other areas, I think it is that incremental increase. It's not an huge demand for us, but I think that there still is, to some extent, reportable replacement demand and that kind of incremental replacement. So a lot of what we're doing is basically replacement of substandard or older facilities that have been determined to be not conducive to 21st century education because they're 50, 60, 70 years old. And as far as adding capacity, it is, like I said, it's either portable replacement or incremental growth.
okay. And then I have a question, Mr. Brandenburg.
Sure.
You mentioned that Orange County has land in Lake County.
They do.
How did they get land in Lake County if we're calling it Orange County?
I had the same question. They acquired most of it back in the 70s when Claremont was, 5,000 people, and Lake County as a whole was 40,000 people, and have just held it ever since. There's, I think, 15 or 20 parcels that all connect right there along the Orange-Lake County line, specifically down Wellness Way and 5 Mile Road and that whole area out there in the middle of all this Wellness Way development. So the intention would be to try to get 80 acres along one of the
I love that
fringes
idea.
and work out a deal that would make sense for both parties. I'd be cautiously optimistic that a government agency to government agency, when it is Lake County land for a public school purpose.
But it's not Lake County land if they own it.
Well, Lake County,
It's
dirt.
situated in Lake
Lake County
County.
dirt, let's put it that way.
But if they paid for it, it's like.
I agree. They didn't pay for it, but they own it, so they were gifted it back in the 70s.
So they like just took it over.
They did.
So I'll give you a little bit of
Yeah.
history on that. Basically, it's the land that we know as
Sounds like Ukraine.
Conserve 2. And essentially, it's a joint venture of Orange County and Orlando. And what they did was they sent all their treated stormwater, or not stormwater, but their treated wastewater out to Lake County. And they actually used it a long time for citrus irrigation.
And did the county, did the Lake County collect any revenue or anything for that agreement?
I don't know that kind of history. I mean, it's been a really long time that they've had it out there. And basically, it's because that area in South Lake County Wellness Way is basically a high recharge area for stormwater. So they were able to pump it out here, spray it on the ground, or actually, if you ever look, you see they call them ribs, and they look like little sand ribs. And basically, they're rapid infiltration basins. And so they can pump it into those basins, and it goes to the Florida aquifer a lot faster. So basically, this was a high recharge area. They brought all their wastewater out here, treated wastewater. They brought it all out here to Lake County, and they basically dumped it into the aquifer there.
You're using past tense, so they no longer do this?
So they still do. I mean, there's still ribs, but a lot of, now that people have gone to reclaim for irrigation, I don't think they do quite as much. Well, I will say, maybe not proportionate to the population, right? But the population has grown a lot in that area. So I don't know exactly the quantities of water that they pump out here, but they are one of the biggest landowners in that area.
They physically own the land.
They physically own the land. Be simple.
We just need
Yes.
to kick them out.
So I have a question.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
Being a
I'm not
part
sure
of,
that we could, that would be a question for Mr. Cole. I'm not sure if we could eminent domain
Let's have
against
some conversations and see what
local
happens.
government.
Why not?
I have a question.
ma'am.
Being on zoning and planning, I hear a lot about Wellness Way. I listen to a lot of presentations on people doing different things there. Have we looked into whether or not this land is suitable for a school? And in addition to that, have we checked with any of the, there's always a group of about 10 or 15 that have very serious documented concerns anytime we discuss doing something there. Have we checked with any of them to make sure there are no objections or
So-
there are no hidden studies that we don't know about?
So we have not done any due diligence on this
Okay.
land
I-
yet.
I would
mean,
caution
obviously,
us
we would,
To do our due diligence
Yes,
before
ma'am.
we move forward, because there are some very active, well-educated groups that know a lot of history about that area.
right.
I would hate for us to get our hopes built up only to find that there's a whole bunch of reasons why we can't do it.
Sure. It is just, I think, one more of the avenues that we're looking at in that area.
Okay.
I think at this point, it is incumbent on us to explore any possible.
Oh, I
avenues.
agree, and I think it's a wonderful idea if it works, but I think before we get too far down the road, we need to make sure that what we're thinking is doable.
You know, because I always thought the money was going to be the reason we weren't building this high school, but now it's just acquiring land.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if I've heard you correctly, like the design money would already be available 1 year earlier than here, but the problem is then people would plan against
Right.
that, and we don't have land.
We need
So
a school.
Exactly.
it's-
At one point, Commissioner Parks was working with a developer. Did that fall through?
Nothing's come to
it
fruition.
did not
has
fall
come to
through, but it
fruition.
hasn't been approved.
Yeah.
So it's still
There's
in
a
play.
bunch of, yes, there's a bunch of proposed things to happen down there.
So there's, like I said, there's a bunch of different avenues, but I think it's incumbent upon us to explore all of them.
That's
right.
So I think it's great that Molly's on there, so you can keep us informed.
They're having a meeting as we speak.
Good planning.
We need to speed this up.
So on that note, I do want to mention one item, just to kind of maybe be on our radar before thinking a little bit too, because I think what I heard you tell me at some point was that despite us building the Mineola Horizon, Grassy Lake's enrollment to permanent capacity is still like 90-something%. Is that right?
They are, so their permanent capacity is 940, and I think their latest enrollment was like 830 something.
All right, so if that starts to creep up a bit and we end up needing that
836.
wing there after all, I'd love to be able to build that wing before they rely on the 5 portables that we won't be able to move once they start on this, so.
Yes,
Just,
and I actually sent Helen a reminder to, let's talk about that and kind of look at where that lull is, or that window is. And also maybe we'll do some preliminary planning and see how much that would cost. I know I'm gonna hate it because we could have built it for like 1 point something million.
Coulda, shoulda.
you know, But coulda, shoulda, exactly. One last thing before I wrap up. Last year, you approved a ancillary facilities study. And so that team with JB Pro and with Growth Planning has been working diligently. They have conducted a lot of data analysis within the confines of the data that we have available. They've conducted site visits and interviews with district staff. They have put out some surveys. They've conducted focus group meetings. And so now they are working on their draft recommendations, and we expect to have something back to you in October, and then hopefully be able to get on a workshop schedule here soon. Okay? So I know there might have been a few questions about what was going on with that. I just want to give you a quick update on it. Okay?
Perfect.
Kelly,
Any
I've got one last question actually for Mr. Farnsworth. There's one project that's on here that we've been working on for a long time that we're almost going to get done. If we can give an update on the Mount Dora High School football field project and the Mount Dora Community Trust money.
Sorry.
I think there's finally a light at the end of that tunnel. Hopefully it's not a train.
It's felt like a train at times. Yes, near and dear to my heart, our Mount Dora football field project. We actually just got some feedback on GMP this morning, so I've already got a meeting set for this afternoon to evaluate that. We faced our difficulties there. Mount Dora Community Trust, whenever we do bring a GMP to the board, we'll bring them in also. They raised a significant amount of money contributing to what was going to be a new press box and concession stand. And when we started looking at that, switching sides, for those people who do not know, the plan was to switch the home side to where the current visitor side is now, which is still the plan. But in that, there was no plan to replace the existing concrete bleachers, which in the process of, I guess it'd probably be around last Thanksgiving, the bottom of those concrete bleachers started giving way, and we had water that was pushing soil to the bottom, through the bottom. What started off as a small mound became sand covering the whole length straightaway of the track for the most part. So we had that identified. We had some other significant issues other than a new concession stand and a press box. So we expanded the scope of that project to include some aluminum bleachers to replace existing concrete bleachers, which when we went underneath them and saw there was running water and some different things, it's a very wet area. If you've been in that bowl that stadium exists in, whether we're in the middle of a drought or we're in the middle of hurricane season, there is water constantly running under that field when you stand next to the drains there. So that, in turn, wound up being a whole lot of, engineering and architecture work that we had to do, and that's what's taken so long to make sure that we're going to do it right. And essentially what's going to happen is some really intricate drainage to reroute the water in that area and carry it to a different location where the new seating would be would would sit inside of a retaining wall that also helps hold up that hill and all these good things. So in order to not have a new press box and concession stand that's sinking into the ground due to, water issues. So it's been quite an issue, and, the longer things take to design, the more the price goes up. I will tell you, if you haven't been there, and you talk about, the issues we deal with Eustis, making sure they have what everybody else has, by far, that football field and where they also play soccer and do some other things is way different than what any other high school in Lake County has. So it's been a challenging project, but I'm starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Good.
So hopefully we'll be coming back to you soon. We're going to give some feedback on those initial drafts we got today on GMP, but at least all the engineering and design work is done at this point.
And the trust was what, 1.2, 1.3 million, something in that range?
Around 1.3.
Yeah, it's awesome. So kudos to Rob English and his team for their partnership on this one.
Are they
And
still holding the cash, or are they transferred?
they have not transferred to us yet. The plan is that whenever we bring forth that project, that we will formally recognize them at a board meeting for their contributions to the project. But I've stayed in constant communication with the trust, and I give him updates frequently, and I wish there was a lot more varying information when I give him updates, but now we're heading into some good stuff.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
looking forward to getting there, so.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
Chairman,
it.
if I may.
Please.
Speaking about the issues with the football field in Mount Dora, it made me think about, I was excited to see the update to Eustis High School that had the practice plan on the backside of the football field, but, I saw the additional cost increase as a result of that. If that's what they're expecting, that's going to cost to flatten out or infill the back of that property behind this current softball field and the football field in that corner are you not, some of these issues sound kind of similar to what we might see there. So $9 million was the scope of work that was provided by the construction manager to do that work.
And that included the field house, though. So
Okay, right.
it's not just- yeah.
But they think that's going to be okay. I just see these issues that we're
Sure.
talking about right now in that spot 10 years from now where another board is going to have to deal with that washout or that problem, just because the slope of that land.
Okay,
I know
so
it was a
you're-
problem that we spoke about. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So you're saying we could have similar issues where
Borrow some money, though.
where the new practice field will be for Eustis? I think we've got much
Yes.
more significant groundwater issues in the Mount Dora area.
I do too. I don't even think it's the groundwater necessarily, but I remember when they tried to do it several years ago, they said, no, we're not touching this with a 10-foot pole. That was before I was on the board. So then when it was presented as a part of the project for Eustis High School, there was some concern with the cost and would it be manageable and doable. And so I was pleased to see it on here. I just wanted to say everybody's comfortable with that design and it's going to be okay.
So we're still working through the design. We actually have the civil engineer happens to be here. But yes, I don't think that the stormwater issues or the running water issues are nearly as bad as what they're seeing at Mount Dora. And so I think it is manageable.
I think that we should do a guess as a board to how many softballs they're going to find in those woods. Whoever's closest can win something.
How often has Emmy Luke practiced there?
No,
to hit
the Emmy
bombs?
was never there.
Oh, okay.
They've not been
It'd be
on the
about
field since
40
Emmy.
if it was in,
Right,
so,
but they were
yeah.
on that field for how many years? And anytime a foul ball
I was
went
about to say, those would be foul balls, so that wouldn't be.
That's true.
That's right.
Our kids are the other
Yeah,
direction.
let's go that way. Anyway, they're back there, and so we were laughing when Jensen and I were talking about the table the other night. She's like, "Mom, how many softballs are they going to find back there?" I'm like, "I don't know." So I'm interested in that number. Thank you. I was excited to see it. I just know we anticipate some of those issues. Then it was a concern before.
Well, and
Softballs
yeah.
and gopher turtles.
Go for it. I hope not those. Those are cost a lot more money than softballs.
I think it's a good point, Dr. Luke. I also think that between all the work that we put into this Mount Dora project and the rest
We'll
of
have
them,
some
that we won't, I
knowledge.
want to say we'll make the same mistake twice because I don't think we made a mistake, but we won't have the same issue twice.
Good.
So I think we're in good shape there, but it's a good concern to bring up. Any other questions or comments for Kelly or Chad before we move on? All right. Kelly, thank you very much. I know this is a massive undertaking and appreciate your efforts and the detail you always provide in this, so thank you. I think she's sitting down and the others are coming up for this one, correct? Or
I'm going to stand up here.
scooting over?
Intro.
right.
If you're ready to move
Yep.
forward? Okay.
Absolutely. Take it over.
So the next item is Eustis Elementary School. We are joined by our design team from Schenkel Schultz and Klima Weeks Architecture, and then also the selected construction manager, DACG. They brought quite a team, and also a lot of members of the community who just sat through my presentation. So thank you for that. Last year we had come to you and said, you know what, we're ready to do the scope for Eustis Elementary School, but we're not sure exactly what that's going to look like. And so we asked you for this time to do some master planning. The team have been working really hard on developing some options. I think they are excited to present those options to you today, and then just get your feedback and kind of your ideas on what the next steps are for this project. It's been a long time. Eustis Elementary is 100 years old, and so I think it's time to do something. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Schenkel Schultz.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Rao, Schenkel Schultz. I have Charlie Sims with me as well. So like Kelly said, we're going to give an overview as to what we've been working on for the master plan process for the project. From a design standpoint, we'll kind of go over where we've been. We also have Shane and Jamie from DACG who are going to come up and talk about the construction side of that as well, because we're working as a partnership to kind of get feedback on constructability, costs, all those kind of things too. So we're kind of going to go through and kind of tell you what we've been working on and get some feedback from the school board. So the first thing on here is really more of an overview as far as milestones, timelines, things we have been working on. We had a kickoff session back in January. We did a lot of visioning, got a lot of feedback about project goals, objectives, timelines. We actually had an open house, which is kind of a meet and greet. We invited the community, the school, to come to Eustis Elementary School, meet in the cafeteria. We did small tours of the campus. We kind of talked to local community. It was nice to kind of get firsthand experience about what people like about the school, what their feelings are about the future for the school. And so that was a great opportunity back in January. Going in through February and March, one of the big tasks we had in that period was doing assessments of the building. So there were more engineering technical assessments. We did a kind of comb through the whole entire campus, all of the existing buildings, taking a look at things like mechanical systems, plumbing systems, code issues, building envelope reports. So we did a pretty substantial kind of analysis of every building on that campus to really kind of understand what the parameters were, what the challenges were with the campus and the existing buildings that we're going to have to work with. Going into February and March, we had a series of design meetings. We're meeting with an advisory team to kind of present our findings, get direct feedback with them. Part of that advisory committee was also looking at doing surveys. So we were submitting questionnaires out to really two different groups. There was questionnaires out to the school staff themselves, teachers, principals, and also a questionnaire that went out to local community neighbors as well, just to get a sense of what their priorities are and what their sense of where the project was going as well. So through March and April in the spring, we had a series of design meetings and kind of updated them on different options, again, to get feedback, look at the findings of the assessments, the findings of the questionnaire, and really combining all this data together is kind of what the effort was back in the springtime. And then as we went into the summertime, we refined those master plan options, and that's a lot of what you're going to see here today for an overview. Regarding the assessment, so this is the existing school site as it is right now. Obviously, the building on the top on the north is the historical building 1, which is nearly 100 years old. And then you've kind of got the rest of the buildings moving to the south. Building 2 is the cafeteria kitchen, which is, as far as today's standards, quite a small cafeteria kitchen for the number of students in that school. Then you have the classroom buildings, and then building 7 located here is one that's actually the newest building on campus that houses classroom spaces. As you know, you've got Salem Street that kind of drives between the two properties, and then on the left-hand side here is the area that's used mostly for overflow parking. So you kind of have a disconnection between the two properties. Regarding the assessments that we looked at, this is a very, very high level. We have a report that's 200 pages long if you want to read it. But at a high level, we found that building 1 obviously had historical significance on the property there. From a technical standpoint, if it were to remain, there were a lot of engineering upgrades that would have to happen, mainly from a building code standpoint, accessibility, structural upgrades. There was a lot of things that would have to be brought up to code on building 1, obviously. From a structural standpoint, it seemed like our analysis was that it was actually structurally sound. There wasn't anything like falling down, from a structural standpoint, but there was some things that would have to be addressed if it was renovated. Building 7, again, is most likely going to have to remain, and that's mainly because of the age of the structure. Tallahassee and DOE won't let you tear down a building based off a certain age. So Building 7 is going to remain. Building 1 had some significance and some challenges along the way. And then overall, the rest of the buildings, there was a lot of concerns we had on the rest of the buildings. Safety and security was one of the big issues. If you look at how the campus is kind of organized and laid out now, there's not really a single secure point of entry. There's a lot of kind of pockets, and the way it's organized is not the safest condition. There are a lot of issues as far as ADA accessibility throughout the campus. You have a lot of unsafe conditions where either people or students are kind of walking through sidewalks and roads because of the way that it's organized. So a lot of concerns there. And then also there's a lot of outdated equipment regarding mechanical systems. I talked about how the kitchen is really kind of undersized. So there's a large number of things that I think need to be addressed on the campus. And the rest of those buildings, really, we looked at replacing those buildings because of a number of factors. I mentioned we did a series of 2 different kind of surveys to get feedback from different groups. So we actually had submitted a survey or questionnaire to the community. We got 223 responses back, which I think is pretty amazing. We asked them questions about, what were they most concerned with regarding the campus, the building, the future of the project. There was a lot of feedback that said historical kind of character of that building, that campus was important to them. A lot of the feedback we got from the survey, and specifically in the open house, was that when we asked them about that historical character and building, it was more the front of the building. The north side of Building 1 is really what everyone kind of identified with. That porch element, they really liked the idea of that being present on that campus there. There was obviously concern about, pedestrian access because the road does kind of drive between the 2 properties. And then they were concerned with vehicular access. And as far as the location of the school, they mentioned that, it was very important, at least for the community, to have that school located in that area. We also did a series of questionnaires for the teachers and the staff at Eustis Elementary School, which I thought was very interesting. A lot of what this kind of told us is that, there is a very wide variety of teaching styles currently happening at the school, which is a fantastic thing. Very passionate group of teachers and educators, and they're encouraging a lot of collaboration in the classroom. There are a lot of special ESC programs that I think are happening. But really the takeaway for me was that even though there's these amazing things that are happening in the school right now, the physical environment that they're in is really not up to the standards that you would see for a brand new school. So they're really doing a lot with what they are able to kind of work with in the classroom and on that campus right now. And then we also had kind of an open-ended questionnaire about like what they feel is important to the school. What does the school mean to you? And a lot of this was very telling because obviously it's a community-focused school. People are very invested in the property. They really love the area. They see it as an anchor for the community. There's a lot of roots here. And so it was really great to get a lot of feedback that there was a lot of passionate feedback within the school here at Eustis. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of the master plan process and where we ended up. So I'm going to hand it over to Charlie. Thank you for something on that.
Hello. All right, so looking at the existing site, we definitely did our due diligence and we looked at many, many different options. And with the help of the advisory committee, we did narrow it down to one option that we do think will work best. Along with that, we did look at some alternate sites. So we looked at Curtright as well as a site next to Eustis Middle School. So these 3 options you can see now in relation to each other where they are on the site. However, after investigation, we have decided to remove Curtright as one of the options. So we will only be presenting you 2 options today. So this is just a refresher just to show you again what the current state of Eustis Elementary School is. So option 1 on the existing site we're calling south because we want to preserve that historical face on the north and actually move the front door to the south. Another big move with this option is absorbing part of Salem Street to connect both sides of the campus, as well as leasing property from the church for additional parking. So again, moving the front door to the south, you would enter off of Lemon, you would conga line around and exit off of Mary Street. The bus loop would remain in the current location. So moving into the campus, you have a 1-story building that houses the admin, media, art, and music. Building 7 would remain a classroom building. Building 1, again, preserving that north public face and then renovating the rest of the building with 2 brand-new classroom wings, one being a single story and the other being a double. And then nestled between Building 1 and Building 7 would be another 2-story classroom building. And then within the courtyard, we have an outdoor stage as well as a tot lot and a youth lot. And then moving over to the west side of the campus, we have a multi-purpose and dining with outdoor seating, covered play, and play fields. And this programming along the drop-off and pickup will be really useful for before and after school.
One thing I want to add too on this concept is that's important to think about is, and this is something we worked a lot with the contractor on and Kelly as well. If we were to go with an option like this that's on the existing site, there are really kind of 3 approaches we can have to how they're actually going to phase the construction for this. And this is part of what Jamie and Shane will talk about in a minute too. But one of the approaches you can do is to essentially do a temporary portable campus where you build out, at least 30 portables on site, have all the kids kind of swing onto that area and do the work that way. Another option is doing a phased approach where you kind of have a few portables, but for the most part you're kind of building as you go and having kids swing into the space as it's being completed. And then the third option would be having the kids go to a swing space and go completely off-site, have the work done on the site as far as construction, and then they all kind of come back when it's done. So it's important to say that even though this is the kind of concept that we sort of focused on, within this there are 3 kind of approaches from a construction and phasing standpoint that we got to think about too.
All right, and then we looked into the classroom distribution just to kind of see where the grade levels could be positioned within the buildings. But the main point of this is to show that with this concept, we did come out with a 740 student station count.
So part of what we did also during the programming phase was to look at and make sure we had all the parts and pieces and classrooms accounted for. So this is an example of a diagram that we did to make sure that we had all the kind of classrooms accounted for and to show how it could start to stack on the site. So in this case, you can see we're looking at doing a portion of being a 2-story wing to take advantage of the site because it's a very, very compact 5 to 6 acre site.
And speaking of the small site, this is just looking at the square footages of the building footprint, and it is actually very comparable to Fruitland Park, even with the site being so small. So the second option is the alternate site, which is next to Eustis Middle School. This would be using Fruitland Park as a prototype. So you would enter off of Bates. This one has a substantial conga line and then would exit back out onto Bates as well. So then you have your 2-story school, your tot lot, youth lot, covered lot, hard courts, and play fields. And this option would also be sharing the bus loop with the middle school.
Yeah, like Charlie mentioned, this one has, I think, about 230 stacking on for the cars. The previous one, if they stay on site, because that site is closer to 90, so there was a substantial amount more of car stacking on this site. And that's primarily a reason because we just more land, obviously, on this option. So the next part, we're going to hand it off to Jamie and his crew to kind of talk about the construction side of it. Thank you.
Patrick, Charlie, real quick. Mr.
Can I ask
Mathias's
one
question.
real quick? Actually, it's Mr. Ward. That building number 7 they're talking about, isn't there a workaround where it could be removed?
If it's being held because of the COPS issue, we can work around that. But I think they were saying consolidate it was if it's a certain age, if it was recently built not too long ago, they won't allow you to tear it down.
How recently was it built?
It was
Somewhere in the mid-2000s.
yeah, mid-2000s,
2005, give or take a couple years.
about 20 years.
So it's actually in pretty good shape then.
Yeah.
So it worked into your whole
Yes, sir.
scheme. That was it.
Can I ask a question as well? How much land is on the Eustis Middle School site?
About 5 acres.
Yeah, between 5 and 6, I think.
Eustis Middle.
Yeah,
Middle.
middle. Yes.
15?
Is it 15?
Yes.
15 for the elementary portion.
Yes.
But you said that the Eustis Elementary School current site is 70% smaller than the Fruitland Park site. So is the middle school site comparable as far as the acreage to the Fruitland Park site? There's no comparison there.
Fruitland Park is, I believe,
19 acres.
19 acres, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good?
Thank you.
Perfect. Shane, Jamie, take it over.
How big is the renovation?
Well, good morning.
On property?
A little under 5.
A little under 5.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, no problem. Just a whole different
aura in here when I'm not stressing about presenting on this one. So congratulations. I wanted to tell everybody on your A ranking, by the way. We're extremely blessed and grateful to have it play a small part in that. So during construction, the construction analysis, within option one, you have 3 options, as to not make this more confusing, like Patrick alluded to a little bit. Constructing a portable campus. Roughly 40 portables, plus or minus a few, would be needed to fill all the spaces for the programs and student spaces if we utilize this option during construction. We'd basically build an entire new school off to the side for the students, faculty, and staff to utilize during construction, and this is something we could set up. And I'm going to give you pros and cons from our viewpoint on each one of these options. Second is the phased construction approach, where we just construct a building, move out of one, move students back in. A lot longer of a process, but I'll explain to you the cost in each one of these as well as we move forward. We'd still need some phasing portables, roughly 6 to 8 on site, but it's a lot easier to house them than it is 40 of them all across an already tight site. And then the swing space. To relocate all the students to an off-campus site, which we've already walked with your building code official, and that is the Eustis Curtright campus. Some small accommodations need to be made there because it's currently set up as a high school space. Things like access in locker rooms that elementary school students don't need to be at. Exterior door exits to be able to make that fit the code, and we've already did some budgetary pricing to make those accommodations. So the pros to the portable campus. Students and staff will remain on site. That's their regular routine. And we know for elementary school students, you want a routine to where they're being dropped off to the same spot daily. It's an easier transition post-construction. They haven't had to leave, haven't had to come back post-construction. They're used to coming in. They're going to see this transform over an extended period of time. The portable installation can be completed over a summer break, where we anticipate to install the portables and do some of the parking lots and things like that. So when school starts, Ms. Boardway and her staff can come right in, have proper notice, have maps, notify the public of how the site will be utilized during one phase until we complete certain areas. Now the phase construction, which we're basically playing a large game of chess on site. Whatever the most critical needs are first are the ones that we're going to want to tackle initially right off the bat. As we plan this phase construction, it gets very intricate with our team on site because we have to have power, water, sewer. We have to have this infrastructure in ground before we start to go vertical, as we call it, in the building construction. You want to have the power there first. You want to have the chilled water to plug into. You got to make sure you're building enough space so we don't have a maintenance hassle for Chad and his team as we turn on chillers, that we're not short cycling chillers, that we have enough building capacity to sustain operating those. The construction can be, like I said, prioritized to critical needs first, but this is an extended, much longer period of construction, which I'll give you in the cons, the downfalls to that. The swing space of this option is the most viable option for us as a team, and I feel for you as the district. Number one, it's an extremely cheaper option, but what it does is we took within our plan to think of the students first, to think about how that's going to affect them by switching locations, transportation, things like that. But this will allow our team to work the most efficiently on this existing campus. We're able to have no students on staff. They're bused to a different facility, dropped off and picked up. If we find something that's in the way, it's going to save cost and having to redesign and work around it. This is our most effective plan. And what this does, as a pro, it shortens the construction schedule by about 12 months to the other shortest option. Now the cons to each one of these. The portable campus, we have very limited space. For the duration of this process of about 24 to 36 months, there's going to be limited space, and Ms. Boardway's students are going to be locked up indoors with very little place to go outside and play, because we're going to be utilizing every square inch of this space to either store materials, do construction operations. We're completely surrounded 360 degrees by residential houses and neighborhoods, and we need to be cognizant of that during our plan. The phase one, we would build a portable campus on site, and basically build your multi-purpose and dining room area first. As we build the portable city, we'll start on the multi-purpose in the parking lot. because it's, as you probably know, Mr. Mathias, to take out a dining room at an elementary school to bring in portable spaces, number one, extremely expensive. Number two, they're extremely scarce to get your hands on something like that. And then there's the potential of having to, the added staff. If you're not preparing this food on site for extended day students in the morning, you have to bus it from a nearby school that has the capacity to do so. We have extensive experience in this. We're doing it right now at a 100-year-old campus, Lake Mary Elementary School, with 40 portables. Yes, sir.
Not to stop you, this is a terrible idea.
Okay.
I know, so rather than continue, if the board agrees, maybe we move to one that's.
Yes, sir. I'll move a little bit further. I was dreading one of those comments to come from you alone.
Smart man.
All right, so that's the cons. Our other site is the alternative site. We'll be building a prototype elementary school that this very team to construct it has just built within the last 12 months. Although it's a little bit smaller of a site, I feel Patrick and his team at Schinkel Schultz said that there would be less of about 5 classrooms, correct?
Correct.
Plus or minus 5 classrooms less that will fit in this prototype model. It's brand new. It's designed, engineered for 21st century learning environments. I know that there's pros and cons to each side with staying historical value. But as far as this goes, construction can proceed while the students aren't affected at all from our standpoint. This is a much shorter duration because from the time design's done, we can have construction on this campus done in about 18 months.
I want to make sure, what I was saying was the whole idea of the portable city.
Portable city was a bad idea.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not saying jump to it.
Okay, all right.
But now we know what they prefer.
I'm sorry.
so very clear.
Well, to jump back, and I apologize, I was like, all right, we'll just move on.
No, I only meant that whole
right.
thing, terrible.
So the phase construction that's going to be anywhere from 36 to 48 months to do phase construction. And the reason being is we can't take over an entire campus because we got to have places to put students, faculty, and staff. There's many variables that affect this. Like the portables would be $4.5 to $5 million just for the first portable option. That's money that doesn't go into the program. It serves a temporary purpose just to get us through construction. Where we view that money could be put into the buildings, you could stretch it a lot further and let the students have access to that instead of just, serving that temporary purpose. The phase construction, it's added GCs on our end because it takes a lot longer to construct it on campus. We would obviously want to move around, construct buildings, move people in and out of those buildings, turn them over, start the next phase. The cons of this is also having, different buildings and warranties. We start a chiller up in year 1. Warranty starts on that chiller year 1. We tie the first building onto it. As we go down the line, at the very end, let's just say it's 4 years down the road, and a problem arises, part of the warranties that the chiller suppliers would put in are already utilized and used up, but yet you have brand new air handlers. That's logistical things that maintenance and us and the design team have to work through, but it's extremely challenging with building controls, with air conditioning, keeping things active, unactive, 2 fire alarm systems on campus, keeping them up and going simultaneously on one site.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things there. Of this option, the swing space makes completely the most sense. We move the students, faculty, and staff over to Curtright campus. We take roughly about 24 months to come through here, tear down what we're going to tear down, find the infrastructure that we need to tie into, and build all the buildings simultaneously. It's the most efficient, most effective utilization of this space with minimal investment of setting Curtright up compared to the other 2.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that plan, Curtright would essentially be turned into an elementary facility?
Temporarily, yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you say temporarily, what would be involved with reverting it into something else?
So when we walked it with a building code official, we would need to add about 8 portables to the site in the very back by the practice fields, which the infrastructure is already there. There were portables there years ago. So the infrastructure, the power, main switch gear is already there with stub outs, very efficient to hook up. Some of the restroom spaces, we would put temporary walls up to just block off. Elementary school students don't need showers when they pass through a locker room, so we looked at those options. Separating a few classrooms and adding a couple doors actually adds value and utilization and brings the school further up to code. When this temporary usage is over, the campus has somewhat been improved. The locker rooms, we can take temporary walls down, because we were gonna build them, not for permanent, just to utilize. We'd have to get a door for maintenance to go change light bulbs and things, but that's a easier approach.
Okay,
And that was pretty much the accommodations that needed to be made.
thanks. And the cafeteria, I assume is just a matter of furniture?
I believe so. When we walked through, there was some things that we looked at for like queuing lines and things like that. That was,
Primarily going from big people to little people's seats.
yes, ma'am. We talked about toilet heights and urinal heights, and we got your building code official is extremely detailed and extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And he's great to work with, and he walked through, we were asking the questions that we see on drawings with intermediate-sized toilets, and he was like, not required, like answering our questions, which made it very easy to put a budget price to rather quickly. Now, the one I jumped to a little earlier, and I apologize, 15-acre site. It's about 4 acres shy of what Fruitland Park is. Construction can proceed. It's a prototype, so Schenkel Schultz already has, some background information on it. We've built it once already. We know the things that we needed to pay close attention to fix. It's a functional campus. Shortens the duration to 18 months. That's less of a cost to you as a district. Now, when I show you the numbers a little bit, I'll explain them, because we got to take a virgin site, actually clear woods and dig ponds and things like that we wouldn't have to do to the extent on the other sites. So there is some cost associated with that. Save for during construction, we're able to do what we need to do off to the side, completely separate on the other side of construction fences. And that's, the other options where they get drug out, and I didn't get to mention this, there's the threat, like when COVID came and tariffs came. You extend something that long, there's the variables that we can only predict for. We're not perfect. Our industry changes from year to year. So when we stretch something out that long, that's something to consider. Now, the cons on this alternative site, like transportation adjustments may need to be made. The risk of unforeseen on off-site, we never know until we do soil boring tests. We didn't want to invest in that until we got input back from the board to know, those are questions that are going to arise. This could be our number one plan, but we don't know what we don't know until we start to make the investment over there. So we just wanted to give you the information to make an educated decision. Now, next page, we went through very detailed estimates. I said some of these numbers were updated as of this past Friday, where we received bids on a 100-year-old campus, similar sized building, occupied site with saving portions of it. They took the portable option, and we can dig into these a little bit further, but we know the cost per square foot. We know 99% of the lines and dots that Schenkel Schultz and Klima Weeks draws on their drawings, what they mean, what your schools need. We've built them before to make the assumptions that may not be clear on the schematic design documents, to at least give some close numbers to get us pretty close. So on the last page here, I gave you the options. We gave you the cost associated and the cost per square foot with each option. The portable campus take us about 36 months from start to finish. The first 12 months of this is going to be a small amount of portables and constructing your temporary parking and getting basically setting the stage for the remainder. We're going to order all the HVAC equipment, the power equipment, whatever all the other buildings need to tie into. Now, this is your most expensive option, because $4.5 to $5 million of this is in the portables alone. Okay. The phase construction option 2 is your longest duration, because we have to hopscotch and
We're going to swing.
okay.
Swing and the alternate.
So
Swing and the alternate. That's where we're
on your swing, that's of that first south option, this is your most feasible. It's most effective for utilizing your existing campus location. And if we go to the alternative site, 18 months, now granted, you see the cost tag is a little bit more of a premium, but it's all brand new. About $3.5 million of that $46 million is just getting the site prepped to even come in, putting the paving in, putting the bus loops, the underground infrastructure, bringing power. That doesn't even include the power, but that cost is captured. This is about when we ran the numbers, on the numbers we had, about a 15%, Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong? Yes, sir. Addition, there he is. He did a study on this, we each took a part. It's about a 15% cost increase from, go back about 2.5 to 3 years when we started this process at Fruitland Park. That's how our trends have escalated. A lot of talking there, but go ahead, Shane.
No, I mean, we made a lot of assumptions, but we went off historical data. And, we feel comfortable with these numbers, but things can change, over this time period. So.
Good work.
Anybody, any
Yeah, I think,
questions?
Jamie, before we dive into questions, I think we're going to open up to the public.
Okay.
And then if we can wrap back around at the end.
Yes, sir.
And take board comments at
Not
that
a
point.
problem.
Mr. Chair, before you do that,
Sure.
may I ask him one quick question?
You may, yes, ma'am.
With the swing, with the alternate site, you said that the school would share the bus loop with the middle school? Did I
Yes, ma'am.
understand that correctly?
There would have to be some accommodations made where they get off and I'll let Patrick take this, like covers where they get
Yeah.
off the buses to be able to enter the school, but go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, part of the thought was that, just gonna pull it up here. Because, number one, the way the property is configured, it's a little bit wider in the front here, so one of the way of being kind of efficient with the space, we're utilizing that as a shared amenity. The idea is that I think that the drop-off period is different between the elementary school and the middle school kids for the buses, so it seemed to make sense, and it's more of an economical approach from that standpoint there.
What about the car rider area? Are they
Completely
sharing?
separate.
They
Completely
have separate?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's about 500 or 600 feet of a gap between where the buses occur and the actual access point for the elementary school property. So it's entirely separate from
Okay,
the vehicular. Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
All right. We're going to enter public comment at this point. I did get one card. We certainly don't need cards, but I'm going to do this card first, and if everybody else can stack up in a single file line that would like to speak. The card I received is Mr. Fred Wardans. So, Fred, you're up. If you want to say anything.
Anyone who would like to go up in front of me, that's perfect.
And you have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Really? Come on, seriously? Okay.
Hi, my name's Fred Wardans, and I'm a resident of Lake County, not of Eustis, but I can see Eustis from about right here. And I can see, well, actually, it's back over here. I'm sorry. And Eustis is right here, and Eustis is here, and Eustis is here. I'm surrounded. Myself and a couple of other folks that live on Blue Lake are surrounded by the city of Eustis, but we're not in the city of Eustis. I love Eustis. I don't care to be in the city of Eustis, honestly, for economic reasons and other things. So I'm perfectly happy. We built our home there 31 years ago. And over the years, a couple of you guys have actually been there for different things. And when we heard that there was a middle school being built, we said, gosh, isn't that kind of infringing upon everyone's privacy and infringing upon the lifestyle that we have out there? We spent a lot of money, as the other folks did around Blue Lake, for the type of property that you would want to do. And having a school across, let me be more specific, having that many cars in there and out of there every day is a pain. You guys can finish it. You know where it's a pain. And it truly is. And we've done all we can. Your chairman has been out there. He has actually talked with the city of Eustis. They have made incredible changes so far in this school year. Last year and before that happened this year, we actually had, I guess it was a open house to begin school. I don't know, I'm not sure what the function was, but we had some 40 to 45 vehicles parked down Lone Pine Lane, which leads to Bates. That's a problem if you're trying to get home or if you're trying to get out of your home. What is a bigger problem is the attitude of the people that park there. I've been cussed, I've been called, you name it, I've been called that. just for asking them to move their car. We're going to be out of here in 5 hours. Oh, okay. So the situation that has occurred, that's one situation that's occurred. The other situation is more, I think is a larger situation, and that's the width of Bates Avenue and the width of, what's the other road? Estes Road coming down to empty onto Bates Avenue. With twice as many cars as you have now, I think it's going to be very dangerous, y'all. I see that in the morning. I'm retired. I see it in the morning and I see it in the afternoon. And it's dangerous. It really is. We've had vehicles, we've had accidents out there. No kids have been hurt. But there is a huge number of parents who just, I don't know, maybe I would do the same thing if I still had kids in school. I don't know. But the problem is that you're either supposed to be bused or you're supposed to be picked up in the pickup loop. We've got a good number of parents there that are right in between that, and they just want to park down our driveway and down our road and on the sides of the road. If you guys have been out there, if you haven't, please come out and look at it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's unbelievable. And so it's a situation that we have, I'm not going to say put up with, because that sounds holier than thou, and I certainly don't mean to be that. We have that situation of overcrowded situation on those two roads, and we're talking about bringing other schools into right next door to the other one. We didn't know until about 2 months ago that property had actually been sold to the school board 30 years ago. That was kind of a slap in the face, quite honestly.
Mr. Rodance, I need you to wrap it up.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I need you to wrap it up. It's 3 minutes.
Listen, that's
just trying
all
to keep
I've
it
got.
flowing. I appreciate it.
I just want you to understand that there are downsides to building a new school. They're pretty. I used to be an owner of an architecture firm as well. It is a great situation when you have that opportunity to do that and to build something brand new from scratch. You take a wooded area and you build that right there. It looks beautiful. It does impose problems for the existing residents, okay? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else care to speak? Please come up to the podium and give your name and address for the record. And again, it's 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. How are we? You guys all right? Well, good, me too. Hey, I got a quick question. Could y'all go back one? I'd appreciate it real much.
To that one?
Yeah, perfect. So my name is Dylan Shelton. I live at 804 East Lemon Avenue. So that gentleman was saying he could kind of see the school. I live right here. I got so many kids that walk by my house every day. Good morning, Mr. Shelton. How are you? I got maybe 15 or 20 that come by. I love them. They're like my kids. I just found out one of them, he just went on to middle school. I couldn't figure out where he went this year. That school is filled with love. It's filled with remembrance. It's filled with kindness. And I was really glad when I got to see the whole team back again. I remember you guys from the open house. They did a great job with this. This is a fantastic plan. And with building a new school, there absolutely come challenges, issues, all these things that can arise, but also refurbishing a school, right? But keeping something alive that is so important to our community. As you saw in the surveys that came out, 223, I think it was, they said they had a response to. So many of us want to keep it. It's also, if we follow with a swing plan, that comes out to be a cheaper method. And it keeps us having the historical aspect of the school, and it also builds up the school so we can still have that, we can still have that feeling of that small town community, but also have that historical feel. One of the things I would like to say that I think would be really, really cool if you guys could is incorporate some of the old picture frames or old pictures of the school. When you build the new school, whether it be here or there, whatever you guys decide, please God, let it be this plan. But let that be known that just add that in. Let the kids that go there see the 100 years of history, of people that went there, of the people that lived there. My house has stood since 1914. It was there before the school. I love my house. That school stood for 100 years. I think you guys said earlier you had a building that was coming up for a school that was approaching midlife. That was built in 2000. That's 100 years. Things were built to last. Put the money into it. Put it where it belongs. Put it where the community wants it. We really, really would appreciate it. Come by. My porch is always open. Have a sweet tea. Enjoy it. I appreciate you in your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Sue Ann Rordans. That was my husband. And yes, we live on Lone Pine Lane, which is right off of Bates Avenue. Built our house 31 years ago, before the middle school was there. We found out that the middle school was going in. We weren't thrilled about that. Talking about policies that are not upheld, there's a million signs up and down Bates Avenue that says no stopping, no dropping off, no stop, no parking. We have 2 at our driveway, and yet that policy is not upheld. Thank you. The police were there, have been at our driveway in that site, and it is so much better, and we are so grateful for that. I don't understand how in that little space from 44 to Estes, we're going to have 2 schools. That is a lot in that one little stretch of street, which Freddie said, my husband, it's narrow. It's super narrow, and I don't know the cost, and if the cost is including all the road work that would have to be done, and who pays that? Who's going to pay for Estes and the turn lanes and the, getting in and out of the schools? And the time frame of drop-off and pickup, for those of us that live there, it's going to be, instead of one time frame in the morning and one time frame in the afternoon, it's going to be 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, which is, that's hard. That's hard. And also, I went to Eustis Elementary. Thank you so much. I was there I'll tell you, this tells you my age, in the late 50s and early 60s. I love that school. It is filled with love, and it is special. It's just really special. And I think if we can operate on the plan, even updating Curtright, I think that's an awesome idea. Get that updated and then get the school. And I know the time frame sounds a lot right now, but I think it would help us to not be short-sighted and say, 36 months, that's terrible. 10 years down the road, that's not going to matter. And also, 10 years down the road, if Eustis Middle School needs to expand and Eustis Elementary School needed to expand, and they are bumped up right next to each other, how are either one of them going to expand? I just have some questions like that, but thank you. I appreciate you listening. I love Eustis Elementary School. Went there and just have some concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rordance. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Joanne Shalom, and I live at 114 South Salem, so on that
You're the
property
closest.
on the corner. We don't have a problem with the school staying there. We don't have a problem with the kids. We don't have a problem, even the traffic is a pain in the neck. We even get a lot of people throughout the year deciding our side yard is a parking lot. We've gotten the names called to us and everything, but we love the kids. My husband is known as the old man that sits on the bench and watches the kids in the morning. The kids speak to him, they see him. Even kids that have gone on to middle school, when they come walking by, speak to him. And I think that moving that school out of what's a neighborhood school out of a neighborhood into another neighborhood, you're ruining that whole peaceful feeling that that neighborhood has had for its school. It's a part of the community right there. And all of a sudden now you're saying, let's shift to the other end of town. And I think that you're asking those kids to make a big shift in the way they're going to feel about their neighborhood. A lot of those kids can walk to school, even though some of them are riders. They could walk if they had to, but if you put it out on Bates, they're all going to be bussing. So I think you're looking for a safety issue for the kids that are going to have to walk from the Bates down through there too. So I agree. The kids love that school. I think moving it would be the wrong thing to do. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Charlie Hawkins. I hate being on this side, and I hate that 3-minute buzzer, so I'm going to talk fast.
And I love you.
No, I'm one of 25,000 residents in Eustis. My son went to Eustis Elementary, and I loved it. I cried my first tear at kindergarten when I left him there. So I get it. I get it. Eustis Elementary is not the building. Eustis Elementary are the teachers, the cafeteria workers, the janitors. That's what it's all about. I appreciate, it's a special school, but let's not forget, it's the people in the school that make it special. I think that's important. Parking. We've had people talk about parking. Every school in the city, every school in the state, you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have people that when they get out of school, they're not going to follow the rules. They're going to park where they want to park. I did a pros and cons because I didn't want to talk too long. The pros are keeping the building, the memories, the cost, the possible costs, no change to the routine. The pros of keeping it at that location, and no additional inconvenience moving to Bates. The cons, which outweigh my pros: construction with the kids on site, the laydown of the construction and the material, portables, the memories, the not good memories for the kids, because they're going to be in portables, and there's going to be construction around them. The learning disruption because of all of that. The playground now and at full capacity. Where are the kids going to play while this is happening? The cost, the additional cost to build on site, the additional time to build. The queue line for parking. What are we going to do with the queue line while the construction is going on? I mean, for pickup, I'm sorry. Closing the street. Security of the kids on that confined site while all this is going on. We know what happened up north. Our kids are going to be in that confined site. A tight neighborhood. Open campus doing construction. Construction noise to the neighborhood. And the rebuilding in an historic district. Now, for the new site, the pros. Brand new school. Room to grow. Room for our kids to play. Our kids to run around and play. I don't see that much, I'm sorry, that 3 minutes. Hopefully that's one. The queue line for parking is not going to be in a historic district. It's going to be next to the middle school, which makes for an easier transition from elementary to middle. The cost would be less to build on the new site as opposed to trying to build with our kids there. And there's no disruption of learning. And finally, the cons. I think that was like a 10-minute one. The traffic. I understand the traffic on Bates Avenue. I understand that. We at the City of Eustis, and you all have said, traffic is the pickup has gotten better. The chief has made a concerted effort to make sure that the message is sent that going forward there will be none of the parking. And last but not least, construction of a new school in the neighborhood. I know that's a con. No one wants a life change. I understand it's a change of life, it's a change of lifestyle. But the most important thing is our kids. That's the most important thing, is what's best for our kids. Okay, done? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Hawkins. Anyone
I
else?
didn't say that mayor stuff, I just went up as a resident.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins, who's also the mayor. Any other public comments?
Oh, and the technology, I'm sorry.
Perfect. Everybody else good? All right, if that's the case, we're going to close public comment and go back to board discussion. Who would like to kick it off?
I would love to.
Go right ahead.
Do we have the results of the traffic study?
Good morning. I'm Jay Klima with Klima Weeks. We have a traffic consultant that has done some of the work. It's not quite done. We're expecting the final report next week is what they told me this morning. What has been accomplished, before the end of last school year, we were able to get them out there quickly in the middle of May to grab existing data for the existing middle school. Based on their analysis of the existing data, and actually the city was kind enough to provide some data for traffic, background traffic on Bates as well. Based on that information, they're saying that the conditions at the intersections and on Bates are acceptable, and I want to make sure I'm clear about what
Sorry,
they're
you said the
saying.
conditions at the intersection of Bates and,
No, on Bates and at the intersection of Orange and DeLand are the two locations that they were generally looking at. In those two locations, the traffic in its current condition is acceptable. I want to make sure I'm clear. It doesn't have anything to do with the concerns like people parking in people's driveways and things like that. They're literally looking at the infrastructure of the road and whether or not it accommodates the traffic. So what we don't have is we don't have the critical piece of what does the addition of the elementary school do to that. That's what we'll have next week. The only piece that I was going to add is just to keep in mind that the operation of the middle school and the elementary school are two different times. So the likelihood of that increasing a condition on the existing roads is not high because they aren't there at the same time. Or if they are, it's very limited in terms of the overlap. Does that make sense? Just because of the pickup and drop off times. So that's what I can update on the traffic study.
Thank you, Jay.
Yep.
it's a little bit disappointing that the traffic study isn't ready to have the conversation. My number one concern with the moving to the middle school is not whether or not the roads can handle the capacity. It's the safety. And so I do live there and I do drive that road every single day of my life. And it is, it doesn't matter if you're talking about the cutoff road that runs between Orange Avenue and 44A, the cutoff road on this side, which has the Curtright on the left, the right side on Bates Avenue, and the middle school on the left side of Bates Avenue. That road is heavily congested, and I've had children at Curtright that I've had to bring out and drop off, and there is not a light. There are no plans for a light there. It is not in the county's plan for the next 5 to 10 years to build a light there. There is a flashing light there. And I have risked my own life to be on time for places to try to drop my kids off and get out of that intersection. So, and I that's a joke, but it's really not. So I can tell you that in the mornings between the time of 7 a.m., to your point, different drop-off times, that's not even including the middle school traffic. That's just the drop-off for the high school on the right-hand side. And then the 9 o'clock side as well, where I'm not necessarily coming across that traffic, but I have gone and observed because I know that the police chief has been there. I know that they've been trying to make concessions for the residents and the concerns the residents have. My concern, and this is going to sound really rude, and I don't mean it to be, it's not even about the residents. It's about the children that are on that road, that cutoff road. I see them walking in the morning. Those road conditions are absolutely, I wouldn't let my own children walk on that road. And so as a board member for the past 10 years, one of the questions that I often say is if it's worth bringing up as a board member, if I wouldn't let my own children do it, I would not subject any child to it. We already have children walking those roads as middle schoolers. If we add an elementary school to that road, I worry that we're going to add elementary age students. I would never do that. It wouldn't matter if I had to quit my job and get a different job, but we have students that we have to put a different lens on that don't have the opportunity to take a different position elsewhere so that they can take their kid to school or pick them up from school. It's just not a reality that they live in. So my number one concern is the safety of the amount of students we'd be adding to that road. And the backside, I didn't even, before this conversation all came out, I wasn't even thinking about Estes. I drive a Ford Expedition, and that road makes me nervous, just so you know. Nervous going this way, that I'm going to hit the car that is also big because there's a lot of big trucks on the north end of the county. And so when we drive this way, and if you go too much to the right, there are mailboxes. So there is no way to annex. There's no way to get eminent domain. I've spoken to the county commissioner that represents our area as well. It would cost between $30 and $40 million for us to even begin the concept of asking for eminent domain, building sidewalks on either one of the parallel roads, not the Bates Road, the parallel roads, to even get it up to the standardized for kids. So I can appreciate, and I was listening, Mayor Hawkins has been amazing. He is so supportive of the Eustis schools. If the swing site is an option, I feel like it takes care of some of the concerns about there's no play field at the current Eustis Elementary School if you've been there. Like it's in pretty rough condition still currently. So if we move to the swing site, there is a play opportunity for them at the Curtright campus. So that's not a concern anymore. There isn't learning loss. There's room to run around. There's rooms for those kids to do those things. I do have a concern that this is a 6-acre site if you include the church parking lot. Is that accurate, Kelly? It's about 6 acres if you include the church parking lot. And then we're talking about 15 acres. I do think this is a small property. If we have to grow beyond this, there's got to be other opportunities. And I will also tell you that the other concern I have is the decreased capacity, right? So we know that we have students that are choosing other options than our public schools. And so will we need a bigger school? Right. Don't I wish I had a crystal ball? But right now, without infrastructure in place from our county commissioners, this land was all annexed to Eustis, to Mr. Rodan's point. This was all annexed into Eustis, but some of it wasn't. And so there's even concerns for me personally about whose problem is it? And I don't want to build a school in a specific space because we have less time and
What they have.
right.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it's not even on the plane. Would go in.
That you're able to do this on this pretty exciting 100th anniversary. You hear from there or didn't go there, but we've gotten away from can't run in elementary anymore. And fairly unique to you that one of the successes, very limited